The roar of the crowd was deafening, a thunder that rolled across the marble Colosseum as though Jupiter himself had spoken. Dust swirled in the air, blood already staining the sand from the day's previous combat. Beneath the scorching Roman sun stood Caeso Varro, Caeso, mid-20s, tall, broad-shouldered, scars across his chest, dark hair cropped short, eyes like storm clouds, the gladiator who had become a legend. His breathing was steady, though the weight of 100,000 eyes pressed upon him. The gate creaked open. Another opponent, this one clad in heavy bronze armor, a murmillo with a crested helm, charged forward, sword raised high. Caeso shifted his stance, muscles rippling under the sheen of sweat, and waited. The clash was brutal, steel ringing against steel, shields splintering under the force of blows. The murmillo swung wildly, but Caeso, precise and merciless, sidestepped and drove his blade upward through the gaps in armor. The man crumpled with a choked cry. The crowd erupted, Caeso, Caeso, Caeso. Caeso lifted his sword, his expression hard, but his thoughts elsewhere. He was a slave to their entertainment, a man whose victories chained him more tightly than defeat ever could. For though he had survived again, he knew what awaited him in the tunnels beneath: whispers, wagers, and the ever-watchful eyes of Rome's elite. That was where he saw her. She stood in the shadows of the senator's balcony, pale silk robes draped over her slender form, golden hair pinned with delicate combs that caught the torchlight. Livia Aemilia, Livia, 18, slender, delicate yet with a proud bearing, bright green eyes that revealed curiosity and defiance, daughter of Senator Marcus Aemilius, one of the most powerful men in Rome. Their gazes locked. For an instant, the noise of the Colosseum faded. She did not cheer, did not revel in the spectacle of blood. Instead, her eyes softened, as though she saw not a killer but a man. Caeso lowered his gaze quickly. Such thoughts were dangerous. But the image of her lingered, carved into his mind more deeply than the scars on his skin. That night, the cells were stifling. Chains clinked as men groaned and nursed wounds, their laughter crude, their curses filling the dank corridors. Caeso sat apart, sharpening his sword with steady, deliberate strokes. "You fight like Mars himself favors you," a voice whispered. Caeso's head lifted. From the shadows, a cloaked figure stepped closer. The hood fell back, and his heart stilled. It was her. "Lady Livia," he breathed, his voice low, both shocked and reverent. "You should not be here." Her green eyes darted nervously around the cell block. "If my father knew, he would kill us both. But I had to see you. To know if you are as fierce beyond the arena as you are within it." Caeso's lips curved into the faintest of smiles, the first in months. "And what have you discovered?" "That you are not a beast," she whispered, her gaze unwavering. "You are a man. And Rome does not deserve to keep you caged." Days passed. Nights followed. And with them, stolen moments. She found excuses to slip into the gladiators' quarters under the cover of darkness, bringing food finer than any slave would taste, sometimes a simple touch of her hand, sometimes daring words that stoked a fire he had long buried. "Every time you fight," she murmured one night, fingers grazing the scars along his arm, "I fear I will never see you again." Caeso caught her hand, pressing it to his chest where his heart beat furiously. "Then know this: every time I step into that arena, it is not freedom I fight for. It is the chance to see you once more." She gasped softly, torn between joy and dread. Their lips met for the first time, a kiss charged with desperation, sweet yet dangerous. In that prison of stone, under the torchlight, the gladiator and the senator's daughter sealed a bond forbidden by Rome itself. But Rome had ears everywhere. One evening, as Caeso returned from training, a fellow gladiator, a wiry Gaul with sly eyes, cornered him. "You think no one notices?" the Gaul sneered. "The senator's girl sneaking down here, risking her life for a dog of the arena? Be careful, Caeso. Secrets in Rome are worth more than blood. And some men would sell both." Caeso's jaw tightened. He knew the Gaul's words were true. Danger crept closer with every embrace, every whispered vow. And yet, when night came and Livia returned, Caeso did not send her away. He could not. One morning, as the sun bled red over Rome, Caeso was summoned to the ludus master's chamber. The old man's face was grave. You are to fight tomorrow, he said. Not against another gladiator. Against 3. It is the senator's wish. Perhaps you have made an enemy you do not know of. Chryso's stomach sank. He understood immediately. Marcus Aemilius had begun to suspect. And if Chryso fell, his secret love would die with him. The day of the fight came swift and merciless. The Colosseum swelled with anticipation, the roar of the crowd echoing like thunder against the towering stone walls. Merchants shouted, selling figs and wine, gamblers pressed coins into eager hands, wagers flying on whether Chryso would survive the spectacle. Chryso stood in the tunnel's shadow, his bare chest gleaming with oil, the weight of his sword heavy in his grip. His breathing was steady, though inside, every thought was of her. Livia. The gates groaned open. Blinding sunlight poured in, flooding the arena. Chryso stepped forward to a cacophony of cheers. Rome adored him, yet that adoration was its own curse. For every hand that lifted in praise, another sharpened a dagger in envy. Across the arena, 3 figures emerged. A Thracian with curved sickle blades, a hulking Murmillo with a tower shield, and a nimble Retiarius, net and trident glinting in the sun. They circled him, predators scenting blood. In the senator's balcony, Livia sat beside her father. Her silken robe shimmered in the light, though her hands clenched tightly in her lap. Her father's gaze was sharp, calculating, lips curved in the faintest smile as he leaned toward her. Observe, my daughter. Today you will see why Rome thrives. Strength triumphs. Weakness dies. Remember that when you choose your path. Livia swallowed hard, her eyes fixed on the lone man standing against 3. Fear coiled in her stomach, but her heart burned hotter than her terror. She could not let him die. The horn sounded. The Thracian lunged first, blades flashing. Chryso twisted aside, parrying with brutal precision. The Murmillo advanced with a shield charge, but Chryso pivoted, forcing the Thracian into his path. Metal crashed against metal. The crowd roared. The Retiarius cast his net, the weighted cord spiraling toward Chryso. In a heartbeat, Chryso dropped, rolling across the sand, narrowly avoiding entrapment. He came up with his sword raised, slashing through the Thracian's thigh. Blood sprayed. The Thracian collapsed, clutching the wound. The crowd howled for blood. Chryso hesitated only a breath before driving his blade through the man's chest. Mercy was weakness here, and weakness would kill him faster than steel. The Murmillo bellowed and struck, his shield smashing into Chryso's ribs. Pain exploded through him. He staggered, the sand rising to meet his knees. The Retiarius pressed forward, trident stabbing for his heart. Chryso snarled, twisting aside, the trident grazing his shoulder. His sword swept upward, slicing deep into the Retiarius's arm. The man screamed, stumbling back, his net dragging uselessly across the sand. Magnificent, Senator Marcus Aemilius murmured, sipping his wine, though his gaze flicked to Livia. He caught the way her eyes lingered on Chryso, not with the curiosity of the crowd, but with longing. His lips curved coldly. Yes. His suspicions had been correct. Chryso and the Murmillo circled, the air thick with tension. The crowd's chant pounded like war drums. Chryso's ribs ached, every breath fire. But his focus sharpened, cutting through the pain. The Murmillo lunged, shield raised, sword descending in a brutal arc. Chryso ducked low, rolling beneath the shield's edge. His blade thrust upward, piercing the man's exposed side. The Murmillo's eyes went wide, mouth opening in a soundless gasp before he toppled to the sand. The arena erupted. Chryso staggered, blood dripping from his shoulder, sweat pouring down his back. Only the Retiarius remained, clutching his wounded arm, desperate yet defiant. The man charged, trident poised for a final strike. Chryso caught the haft mid-thrust, wrenching it aside. With a roar, he slammed the pommel of his sword into the man's skull. The Retiarius crumpled, motionless. Chryso stood alone. Victorious. The crowd surged to its feet, their chant thunderous. Chryso, Chryso, Chryso. But Chryso's eyes did not seek the crowd. They found her. Livia. She had risen to her feet without realizing it, her lips parted, tears brimming her eyes. She quickly sank back into her seat under her father's gaze, but the moment had been seen. By her father. By the crowd. And by fate itself. That night, the corridors of the Ludus were filled with drunken laughter and shouts of celebration. But Kaiso was silent, his body aching, his thoughts a storm. When the others finally slept, he heard the faintest whisper at the bars of his cell. Kaiso. He turned. Livia stood there, her cloak drawn tightly around her, eyes wide with urgency. You must leave Rome, she whispered. My father suspects. Today's fight, he arranged it. He means to see you destroyed, not by another's sword, but by his command. If he learns the truth about us, her voice broke. He will not only kill you. He will lock me away where I can never reach you again. Kaiso stepped closer, pressing his forehead against the iron bars, his hand reaching through to brush hers. Livia, he murmured, his voice low, rough, filled with both defiance and fear. Rome may bind my body in chains, but not my heart. It belongs to you, whether I die tomorrow or live 100 years. Her tears fell freely now, her grip tightening around his. Then swear to me, Kaiso. Swear you will fight for your freedom, not for the crowd, not for Rome, but for us. His jaw clenched, eyes blazing. I swear it. But the shadows of Rome are long, and someone else had heard those words. A figure slipped back into the darkness, the same sly Gaul who had warned Kaiso before. His lips curled into a smirk as he whispered to himself. A secret like this could buy a man's freedom, or his fortune. The next dawn broke heavy and grey, the skies over Rome swollen with clouds that threatened rain. Kaiso awoke with a start, a low pain gnawing at his ribs where the Murmillo's shield had struck him. The Ludus smelled of stale sweat and damp straw, the distant clatter of chains echoing through the stone halls. But today, something felt different. The guards' steps outside his cell were more frequent, their voices hushed, deliberate. The other gladiators noticed it too, eyes narrowing, whispers curling like smoke in the air. The Gaul leaned against the bars of his own cell, his sly grin cutting through the gloom. Word travels fast in Rome, he murmured. A senator's daughter sneaking into the gladiator cells? Dangerous games, Kaiso. Very dangerous. Kaiso glared at him. Keep your tongue still, Gaul, or I'll cut it from your mouth when I'm free. But the Gaul only chuckled, eyes glinting. Oh, I won't speak. Not to you. But to a man like Marcus Aemilius. He pays well for loyalty. And even more for betrayal. Later that day, Kaiso was summoned to the training yard. His body still ached, but the Ludus master barked orders without mercy. He obeyed, his muscles burning as he lifted shield and sword. Yet he could not ignore the senator's presence. Marcus Aemilius stood by the gate, surrounded by guards in polished armor, his toga pristine white against the dust and sweat of the yard. His eyes were cold, his jaw hard. When Kaiso finally paused, chest heaving, Marcus stepped forward. You fight well, the senator said, his tone almost admiring. Rome loves you. And Rome does not love easily. Kaiso said nothing, wiping sweat from his brow. Marcus's gaze sharpened. But even the strongest beasts must learn obedience. A gladiator's place is the sand. Remember that, Kaiso Varro. Because if you ever forget, his eyes flicked upward to the balcony above, where Livia stood watching, her face pale. Then you will not be the only one who suffers. That night, Kaiso lay awake in his cell, his heart pounding with rage and fear. Livia's warning echoed in his mind, he knows. Marcus Aemilius was toying with him, letting him live just long enough to tighten the noose. When the guard's footsteps finally faded, the shadows at the cell door stirred. A soft voice whispered, Kaiso. He bolted upright. Livia slipped inside, her face hidden beneath a hood. She carried a small oil lamp, the flame trembling as much as her hands. We don't have much time, she whispered urgently. My father plans to sell you to the mines in Hispania. You won't survive the journey. He wants you gone from Rome, and from me. Kaiso rose, crossing to her in 2 strides. Then I'll kill him before he kills me. No, she gasped, clutching his arm. If you spill a senator's blood, not even the emperor will protect you. They'll crucify you on the Appian Way. Her eyes burned with desperate resolve. We must escape. Tonight. I've bribed one of the guards, he'll unlock the eastern gate at midnight. A cart waits for us beyond the walls. Kaiso's breath caught. He had dreamed of freedom countless times, but never had it felt so near. Still, doubt clawed at him. Livia, if we flee, you'll lose everything. Your family, your status, your life of comfort. Her lips trembled, but her gaze did not waver. What is comfort without love? Rome is a gilded cage. I would rather be free in the wilderness with you than a prisoner in silk. He kissed her then, fierce and unyielding, their hearts colliding in the shadows of the cell. Then we go, he whispered against her lips. We go tonight. But betrayal moves faster than love. The Gaul had been listening. Hidden in the shadows, he slipped away the moment they embraced. By the time Livia departed, heart pounding with hope, the Gaul had already reached the senator's villa. Marcus Aemilius, he said, bowing low, his grin venomous. I bring you a gift worth more than gold. Your daughter and the gladiator, tonight, they plan to flee Rome together. The senator's eyes darkened like storm clouds, his hand tightening around the stem of his wine cup until it cracked. Good, he said coldly. Then let them try. Tomorrow, Rome shall feast upon their corpses. As midnight neared, Kaiso waited in the shadows of the ludus corridor, every muscle taut, every sense sharpened. His sword hung at his side, stolen from the armory. Livia would come soon, and together they would slip into the night, leaving Rome behind. But beyond the eastern gate, hidden in the darkness, dozens of soldiers already waited. Torches in hand, spears gleaming, their faces set with grim anticipation. The trap was sprung. The night air was thick and heavy, carrying the faint scent of rain as Kaiso crept through the narrow stone corridor. His footsteps were silent against the worn flagstones, his sword gripped tightly in one calloused hand. Every sound, every drip of water, every groan of settling wood seemed louder than it should have been. At last, a shadow slipped through the gate at the far end. Livia. She moved quickly, a cloak drawn tightly around her, the hood shadowing her face. Her breathing was shallow, her lamp long since extinguished. When she reached him, she pressed her trembling hands against his chest, as though to assure herself he was truly there. Come, she whispered. The guard has done as promised, the gate is unbarred. Kaiso caught her hand, their fingers twining together. His eyes lingered on hers, fierce and steady. Once we step through, there is no turning back. Her answer was firm despite the quiver of her lips. Then let us never look back. They moved swiftly, hugging the shadows. The eastern gate loomed ahead, its iron bars ajar, the hinges oiled to silence. Beyond, the faint glow of torchlight promised freedom. But as Kaiso pushed the gate open, his warrior's instincts screamed. Too quiet. He stepped into the open, sword half-raised, when suddenly the darkness blazed with fire. Dozens of torches flared to life in a circle around them. From the shadows surged soldiers, Roman legionaries in full armor, shields locked, spears bristling like the teeth of a great beast. Livia gasped, clutching Kaiso's arm. The ring of steel closed in, hemming them against the wall. And then, from behind the ranks, stepped Marcus Aemilius. The senator's white toga gleamed in the torchlight, his expression carved from marble. His eyes passed coldly over his daughter before settling on Kaiso. You thought you could shame me? Marcus's voice was sharp, ringing across the courtyard. A gladiator and a senator's daughter, was that to be your grand tale? To spit in the face of my house, of Rome itself? Father, please, Livia stepped forward, her voice breaking. This is not shame. This is love. Silence. His word cracked like a whip. You are no longer my daughter. Livia recoiled as though struck. Kaiso's grip tightened on her hand, rage searing through him. If you would cast her aside for loving me, Kaiso growled, then it is you who dishonor Rome. Marcus's lips curved in a cruel smile. Love. Then die with it. He raised his hand. The soldiers advanced. Kaiso shoved Livia behind him, sword flashing in the torchlight. The first legionary thrust his spear forward, Kaiso caught the shaft, twisting hard until the soldier crashed into his comrade. He lunged, blade biting deep through bronze and flesh. Blood sprayed across the cobbles. The soldiers surged as one, their shields clanging like thunder. Kaiso roared, swinging his sword in wide arcs, each strike born of desperation and fury. Two fell quickly, but the sheer weight of numbers pressed him back. A spear scraped his side, burning through flesh. He staggered, teeth gritted, refusing to fall. Livia darted to his side, her hands clutching at his arm. "Kaiso, we must run." "There is nowhere to run," he shouted, parrying another thrust. The ring of steel closed tighter, torches blinding in their brightness. "Enough," Marcus's voice cut through the chaos. He gestured sharply. From the ranks stepped two soldiers dragging a crossbow-like Scorpio. The weapon creaked as it was cranked, its iron bolt gleaming wickedly in the firelight. Livia's eyes widened in horror. "No," she screamed, shoving past the soldiers toward her father. "Please. Spare him. If you ever loved me, spare him." Marcus seized her arm, holding her fast. His face was cold as stone. "You chose your fate the moment you gave your heart to a slave. Watch, then, as Rome reclaims its honor." "Father." But the order had already been given. The Scorpio loosed. Kaiso twisted, shoving Livia aside. The iron bolt hissed through the air and buried itself deep into his shoulder, slamming him back against the gate. Pain tore through him like fire. He bellowed, staggering but refusing to fall, his hand still clutching his sword. Blood streamed down his chest, his vision blurring. Yet still he raised his blade, eyes blazing with defiance. "Rome will not break me," he roared, his voice carrying over the soldiers, over the crackle of torches, over the silence of the stunned night. And in that moment, the crowd that adored him, the city that bound him in chains, seemed very far away. All that mattered was the woman he loved and the freedom they had almost seized. But Marcus Aemilius's hand fell again, signaling the soldiers forward. The ring closed tighter. Spears lowered. Kaiso's legs trembled beneath him. His sword slipped, clattering to the stones. He sank to one knee, blood pooling beneath him. Livia broke free from her father's grip, racing to Kaiso's side. She threw her arms around him, sobbing into his chest. "No. No, please, stay with me." His breath came ragged, his body shuddering. Yet his eyes found hers, fierce even in fading strength. "Livia," his voice was hoarse, each word an effort. "Remember. I swore to fight, for us." Tears streamed down her cheeks as she pressed her lips to his, desperate, clinging. "And I swore I would never leave you. If you die, I die." Marcus's face twisted with fury. "Guards, separate them." But before the soldiers could move, thunder cracked overhead. The sky opened, rain pouring down like the wrath of the gods, extinguishing torches, plunging the courtyard into chaos. The heavens split open, lightning clawing across the night sky as rain poured in torrents. Torches sputtered and hissed, plunging half the courtyard into shadow. The sudden storm sent soldiers scrambling, shields lifted to ward off the downpour. Kaiso staggered, clutching the bolt in his shoulder, blood mixing with rain until it streamed down his body in crimson rivulets. His vision blurred, but he clung to Livia, her hands pressed against his wound, her lips whispering frantic prayers. "Move!" Marcus Aemilius shouted above the storm. "Kill him! End this farce!" But the storm had turned the cobbles slick, soldiers slipping as they tried to advance. And in that chaos, Kaiso felt the heat of fury surge once more. With a guttural roar, he wrenched the bolt from his shoulder, the pain blinding. He stumbled to his feet, sword once more in his hand, lightning flashing across the blade. The soldiers hesitated. For a heartbeat, Kaiso looked less like a man and more like a wrathful god. "Run," he barked at Livia, shoving her toward the gate. "Go find the cart." "No," she screamed over the thunder, clutching at him. "Not without you." His hand cupped her face, his touch fierce despite the trembling of his body. "I'll follow. I swear it." "Go, Livia." She choked back a sob, torn apart, then turned and darted toward the shadows beyond the gate. Kaiso turned back to the soldiers, blood and rain mingling down his chest, his stance wide and defiant. "Come, then," he roared. "Let Rome test me one last time." The clash was a frenzy. 3 soldiers rushed him at once, their spears jabbing, shields pressing. Kaiso ducked beneath one thrust, driving his blade into a man's gut, wrenching it free in a spray of blood. Another struck his back with a shield, sending him sprawling to his knees. But even broken, Kaiso fought like a lion cornered. He slashed upward, splitting a man's throat. The rain washed crimson across the stones. Lightning lit his scarred face, his eyes blazing with fire that no storm could quench. Still, the numbers bore down. A spear sliced across his ribs. A blade tore his thigh. His body screamed, but his spirit burned. And then another bolt from the Scorpio. The iron slammed through his side, hurling him backward against the wall. His sword slipped from his hand, clattering across the stones. His chest heaved, his vision dimming. Enough. Livia's voice rang across the courtyard, shrill and desperate. She had not fled. She stood at the gate, rain plastering her golden hair to her face, her green eyes wild. In her hands gleamed a soldier's dagger, stolen in the chaos. She pressed it to her own throat. "Father," she screamed, her voice breaking. "Call them off, or I swear by the gods, I'll end my life here before your eyes." The soldiers froze, glancing uncertainly at Marcus. The storm thundered above them, the rain unrelenting. Marcus's face twisted, torn between rage and dread. His hand trembled as he raised it to command. "Stand down." The soldiers withdrew, their circle breaking. Only Kaiso's ragged breathing filled the silence, punctuated by the storm's fury. Livia dropped the dagger and raced to him, falling to her knees. Her hands cupped his face, her tears mingling with the rain. "Kaiso, hold on. Please, hold on. We can still run. We can still." His hand lifted weakly, brushing her cheek, his eyes dim yet full of fierce love. "Livia, my heart, you are my freedom. No, no, don't you dare say goodbye," she sobbed, clutching him tighter. His lips curved in the faintest of smiles, even as his body sagged against hers. "Rome cannot cage what we are." His breath shuddered. His eyes closed. And Kaiso Varro, champion of the arena, lover of a senator's daughter, breathed his last beneath the storm. The rain fell harder, drowning the courtyard in silence. Livia bent over him, her sobs lost in the thunder, her hands clinging to his lifeless form. Marcus Aemilius stood frozen, his face pale, his power hollow. He had won but lost his daughter forever. For when she finally raised her head, her eyes burned not with grief, but with fury. "You have Rome, father," she whispered, her voice trembling with hate. "But you have lost me." In the days that followed, the tale of Kaiso and Livia spread like wildfire. Whispers in the streets, songs on the lips of poets, the gladiator who defied Rome, the senator's daughter who loved him beyond death. And though Kaiso's body was buried in a nameless grave outside the city, his story lived on, carved into memory, eternal as the storm that had tried to silence him.